Right, and it's going. Okay, everyone. This is Sora Donald Goofy 99 yet again. And I actually managed to find the Go Under line. Still don't have the Omikoshi Phoenix for Dawn Brothers, but you know what? I'm just fine with this. And I decided to split the... And I do have the entirety of the G12. It's just... This video is going to be focused mainly on the first three for now. The bunch I got actually had all three of the proper engine souls. Bring them a little bit closer to here so that you can see. And we got Bear RV soul here. This came with the Highway Buster roleplay weapon sets. Bussons here came from the Mantan gun set. And Speedors actually came with the Engine O set proper. Yeah, so the original set is just Speedor, that, and the other two. However, the batch I got, I didn't need to get the extra things that I really didn't want or need, so that's what I got. And we will be having a cameo appearance from the Go Rotor GT for a few of the sound effects that the Engine Souls actually use. Setting that aside, now I'm going to be talking about the figures themselves. Speedor is maybe my favorite of these three. Fortunately, because of age and time, these things are not going to be functioning as well. I've had the wheels yell at me, like screech at me a few times while I'm making sure everything worked. And as I have instinctively started the show, Speedor here does have a miniature bird mode. Or what is essentially a bird mode. It's part of the transformation to the Engine O Mecha. But a few times in the show he would glide around. Speedor never ever flew. I always thought it was weird because he's part Condor, part race car, or I guess muscle car, and he never flew. You can also kind of see a little bit closer here some of the engine bits are a little bit chipped, but it's still shiny despite that. And for where his engine soul would go, you would open this bit back here. Little white tab you would throw down, and using the proper engine soul here like so, it would make the same sound it would from the show, which is great. It would go in like that. And honestly, he does... Honestly, I think Speedo is just cool in general. And the way you activate his sounds are by pressing his beak. He says his name. The engines would always say something that came from their name. Let's go, partner. No, mine doesn't always work. Something about racing. He's super fast in junk. And unlike the other two, he actually has... I'm just going to pop this up for a little bit. It accesses another set of sounds that are for the combination mode. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to save that for later. And that's Speedor. Buson here. Engine 2. He doesn't really do much on his own exactly. Although he does have an attack feature in the show where he would pull these up and they would shoot missiles at everything. Not bad. And his head does bob up and down a teeny bit like it does in the show, which is neat. He has 6 wheels. And it's kind of hard to tell he's part lion, but if you look up here, you can kind of see what they're hinting at to be a mane. Never knew what he was the entire time. I just saw him as a bus with a face until I was like, oh, and he has fangs down here. It's largely how Busan is. And to get his engine soul in, you actually have to choose a compartment. And this we will discuss later. But he has two different sound areas where the sounds will activate. Now, the buttons are very sensitive when they're inside these things sometimes. His name? What he'll usually say after a sentence. And that button is like extra sensitive on Busan for some reason. I think he's the only engine line to do this. You can also put it on the other side to get his other side of sounds. Then you press the button there. And that's Busan. Although we'll just put this back and I will show that for when we need to do that. And honestly for now we'll just put this back in there. That can get a little annoying. And the last one is Bear RV. Really isn't much to her. She probably rolls the best of the three of them because her wheels are so big. And just like in the show, she actually can open her mouth. And be like a little Pac-Man mouth and nom nom nom. Most of her attacks would do that, although she also shot missiles out of her mouth once. Not exactly sure what the angle for that would be, but oh well. Though her engine soul is my least favorite out of the entire line. It does go back here. And that's why. You like shake her the wrong way and the thing just goes off. You're supposed to be able to activate her thing by hitting her nose. Supposed to. Like I have to do that. And that's all you really get out of her. Don't think hitting this changes the sound at all? No, it doesn't. And that's just the thing she says. And as far as the three of them by themselves, I do like their designs. They're a little... Yep, they do err on the goofy side, which is what Go-Onger is famous for. Look close enough at Busan, you can see Go-Onger on the top of his head here. And that does not change, it's just a sticker. And that will happen a lot. And I don't like having the engine holes in because of that, but I do have to highlight that feature. Busan here, though, is... You know, if you ask me, all three of them are, like, neat. They're cool, but they're not amazing. They're not fantastic at all. Like, as... You know, just as figures without the electronics, I think they're great, but when you throw in the engine soul gimmick, it gets a little annoying. So, just so I'm not annoyed, I'm just going to pop these out. And when we get to the transformation, that's already part of what Speed Orb does. Okay. And I will demonstrate the other sounds these things can do with the Go Rotor, and I'm not really going to cover the Go Rotor for the purposes of this. I mean, I think he's a really neat figure and he's fun to play with, but my thoughts don't really exceed anything past that with him. I think everyone else I have something to say about. For the transformation sequence, it is very easy. Speedor, I have been doing most of it the entire time. And these are the arms of the actual mecha. And you just pop out like this, and Speedor is good to go. Then you take Bear RV, take Speedor, slide him in like that, set the arms up, then move those little canisters up, and that whole thing will plug into the back, like so. You drop him there. Bus on is also very simple. You kind of just stand them up, move in these wheels, and there are little feet bits in the back. You kind of got to reach in and set up like that. And finally, this whole thing just slides on top and clicks in. You really can't separate it unless you use the clips here and under the arm there if you want them back in vehicle mode. And finally, you flip that up and you get your engine out. In RPM, this guy was called the High Octane Megazord, which personally I think is a slightly cooler name, but I actually like to give these guys names since they have like anthropomorphic car faces and whatever. Now, Speedor's engine soul does have accessible sounds in this mode as opposed to... That's, again, another issue I have with the thing. And you hit the beak, and like Bus On, he also says it. All of them say that. There's really no other way around that. I just brought the Go Rotor in as a cameo to demonstrate the combo sounds you can get out of them. For posability, he is nowhere near as good as a Don Oni Taijin, and I'm not sure that's only because he came before Oni Taijin by like a decade and a half. But there's also the Boken or the Drive Max Megazord 2 years before him that had even more posability. I think you could have squeezed in an E-joint maybe, but I just think he looks fine as is, though. I mean, you can do this with him, but my other favorite thing to do is something like that where it looks like he's trying to, like, make a move, like, pose, flirt, like this weird flirtatious pose thing you can kind of do, but you don't need to do that. And his arms do open, which the High Octane Megazord's English release cannot do. Well, personally, I like this release better after handling both. Just to bring him a little closer. And the 360 my way around him a bit. The head does not move. You get all that as posability, and that's kind of it. However, he does have weapon features, as I'm sure you'll have seen me mess with the thing in the back. It is actually its own weapon. There's a little handle there you can push up. Just have to open the hand and kind of lodge it in until it makes sense, like that. And that shield covers a fair bit, so there's the V shield, as illustrated by the big V. That's Ferrari's chassis. And the other thing I took out before on the Bus On, come back here. Oh, that one. All right. Just that they always put Bus On's engine soul in there in the show, and there's also that, which this engine soul shaped thingy flips open into a sword. Pop this bad boy open and kind of situate it. He doesn't really hold it very well, but it is something you can do, and that is something he can do. You don't even need to have this in front if you don't want. You can have this like hanging down a bit. But I'm just, in general, I'm not a fan of this. I do like the shield, so I kind of like to say, oh, you can do like Captain America and get away with it. Because this is like the only sharp part on the sword. I don't know what the rest of this is. Pretty sure they're just cutting the enemies apart with just that. it does serve one other purpose and like another combination that I'll highlight in a later video. And honestly, yeah, like I said, I usually just keep everything folded up. Even though I do like the shield, it's just like, whatever, we're just gonna throw it back on the back. I just think it looks better in general with this thing back here for some reason. I don't know, the wheels poking out the back just makes a lot more sense to me. And it goes away well enough. That must be the angle it's in, but there you go. Alright. And we are going back to electronics, which again, I will be using the Go Rotor GT to attempt to demonstrate. Trying to do this a bit off camera. Any engine soul will be able to fit in here, but I don't need to do this with anything else besides these three because they only have one, well, technically two, but you can't hit them both at the same time each. So I'm going to try to get this to work. Not exactly sure what that means. The thingy, and I think that's it. It's a little. It's a little bit finicky with these three specifically, apparently. And yep. Basically anything that can hold any of the engine souls and has buttons can activate the sounds. And it's like bus on special line. I do not know what that means. Finally, Bear RV can only activate one set of sounds on, is rather unfortunate. I think that's it for that side. I'm not even sure what that one is, but that's a special one. Yeah. Meh. You could just randomly choose the sounds when you're hitting both at the same time. And that's probably the only time you're seeing the Go Rotor GT on this channel. So I'll just say that yes, this is the Go Rotor GT very quickly. He comes with his own soul, with its own buttons, but I wasn't a big fan of that. I mean, he does have a lot of posability, which is great, and I kind of play around with him sometimes when I need something to mess with, but that's really it. So we'll just get that little cameo out of the way. I think he's neat, but he's not, like, amazing. And it's probably the only time you're going to see him. I literally have next to no thoughts on this guy. Everything else I have a lot more thoughts about. And honestly, despite the fact that I think the engine's old gimmick is kind of I think he's a fine, like, little figure in addition to the line. He's fun, he looks, neat. I wish Bear RV had a little bit more to do with the combo than just the midsection or stomach area, but what you're going to do at this point, it's been 14 years, maybe 15 since Go Under aired, and they're not going to do anything about it now. They've already finalized the designs. I really wanted these guys when they were, like, fresh in the market. I was 16 at that point. And even then, I didn't care how anime goofy they looked. I thought they still looked pretty cool regardless. Yeah, they look goofy, and, the anime eyes are... Which, again, RPM actually highlights is a little bit off-putting maybe to some people. The show itself was fine, but not, like, anything mega dramatic. But I'm not sure it really needed to be. I mean, I'm talking about the show itself anyway. The Engine O or High Octane Megazord itself is great. There are some things I prefer on the American release as opposed to this, and some things I prefer on this as opposed to the American release, but I like it. I did like both versions, but this one is in general good. I just don't have access to my high octane Megazord at the moment. I was not going to dig through a bunch of boxes in a random basement to get it for this because that basement is pretty far away from where I live, and that's kind of it. Actually managed to do this in a semi-decent amount of time. Okay. Anyway, this has been Zora Donald Goofy 99. Hope you like my quick highlight of the Engine O. And next time I will try to cover Burka. Peace out.